Hey everyone, welcome to Ask Olaf, the violin maker. Um, it's morning here at the moment, so I'm just starting my day. Yeah, I thought I'd do something different. I haven't gone live like this before, so it could turn out good or really badly. We'll just wait and see what happens. Um, it's morning here, 8 a.m., so got my coffee, so all is well. Where are people watching from? Wow, so many questions. Okay. Um, Carly will be helping me in a second with some of the questions. And oh, wow. Canada, Michigan, Amsterdam. Where do we have? USA, Colorado, New Zealand, Germany, Scotland, Italy. That's wonderful. That's great. Literally people from all over the place. I just got into my work. I'll sort of start with a few of the things I pretty much do every morning. So I've just kind of opened up my workshop, and I am gonna do the very first thing I pretty much do every day, which is I let things glue overnight. So I am going to take some of the clamps off. Um, This is a beautiful old 1850s Guarnerius copy. And oh wow, we've got pianists watching, people from all over the world. That is so good. Yeah, it's just breakfast time here. Quebec. Bonjour. Bon nuit? I don't know, something like that. Okay. Um, Yeah, it's just like a pretty normal day here. It's Queensland. We're very lucky. It's warm. It's like about somewhere in the 20s. There's beautiful weather out there. Um, yeah. But anyway, this is the violin. I just took some of the clamps off. I had to repair. Can you guys see? There's like a crack here that I've been repairing. So I'm just up to doing all the retouching. How did I get into violin making? That's was one of the questions, which is a great question. I I was basically born into violin making. So my dad is a German master violin maker, and so he learned. So he started one day when he was 16 years old. He had to get his violin fixed, and he went into a violin maker called Geigenbau Machold in Bremen in Germany, and he just went into the workshop, and his eyes just lit up, and he said, "Dad, this is what I want to do." And so he basically started. He asked if he could become an apprentice, and they said yes, and that's how it all started. It was in the 1950s, and so he became a violin maker. So I literally grew up in the workshop of a violin maker. Um, so which is and so it's such a different world. So even um, when I was a tiny boy, I'd be like in the workshop. I'd be watching things and watching him. He'd be asking me about the different sounds of instruments. He'd try three instruments and ask my opinions. So that was a really lucky start. And then when I was fairly small, I just helped with little things like pegs and all those kinds of things. But then, yeah, once I grew up, it was just what I wanted to do. I basically became a violin maker after I left school. So and I learned with him, which was great. I also went to Germany, to Bremen, and so I was very lucky to have very good training. Um, and yeah, and then I started working firstly with my dad, but then I started a shop with my brother. Then we decided that it'd be better if we ran our own shops because we'd probably like each other more. And we still really get along well. And so now I'm running my own shop. Just hang on a second. I've just got to do something quickly. Okay, just 1 second. Okay, here we go. So a lot of people are asking about like what kind of instrument to choose, and so sorry, I'm just trying to read questions and talk at the same time. I'm not very good at multitasking. I'm actually trying to get Carly to help me. Just 1 second. Okay, everyone, of course. Oopsie, sorry. I'll just quickly do this. Don't mind me. No one. Okay. So yes, a lot of people are asking about types of instruments to get, what to choose, and things like that. I'll answer the question, what's the oldest instrument I've worked on from the 1580s, I think. It was a Baroque Norman violin, 1580s. So we're talking a very long time. So I'm getting a lot of questions from people about the kind of instruments to buy. So it's a difficult one. I mean, I'm very fussy when I choose instruments. I'm super fussy, and I make sure that when I choose instruments for my shop, I make sure that they're really well made, they're made from good materials, and that they sound great. And maybe you just watch it, and then if questions come up, tell me. And so I've got Carly helping here, over here. She's so what you do, what I do is I'm very fussy about sound, quality of workmanship, and materials. And so that's how I choose all the instruments that I sell here, and I guarantee all the instruments. But I'm trying to, like in these videos, I'm actually trying to teach you guys a bit on how to choose better instruments yourself, because obviously you're based all over the world. And you can't come into my shop. And also, if everyone came into my shop, I probably wouldn't have any time to do anything. So one of the things I have done is I've written a little book called The 7 Essentials, which can help you choose good instruments. And I've done a few videos on how to choose good instruments. So make sure you watch those. But what's important, firstly, I'll just summarize. So what's really important is that the instrument's well made, that it has good materials, that it sounds good, that it's well set up, so that it's it's really important that it's well set up, because that's what makes playing easy. It has to sound good, and you have to love the instrument. So when you get the instrument, you have to just totally love it. So I'm getting so many questions, so I'm trying to stay on top of it. What I will do is I will go through the questions afterwards and try and get to them.
What's the highest value instrument you've worked on?
The highest value instrument I've worked on, probably about $10 million. It was a Guarnerius violin. So that's fun. Synthetic bows. Look, what's important is that a bow works well for you. So I'm not against synthetic bows. I'm not against. I've worked with Nemanja Radulovic, who actually uses synthetic hair on his bows, and he says it's just the best thing he's ever done, because he used to tear through rehairs every 1 to 2 weeks, and now a rehair actually lasts him an entire year, which is great. Also, synthetic bows like carbon fiber bows. There are some fantastic carbon fiber bows out there. And I've got some really nice timber veneer carbon fiber bows. Can you get me one, Curly? It's a Fleuriel bow that's up there. Yeah, a bit to the left, 2 to the left, I think. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, yeah, coda bows are good as well. I've come across some really good coda bows and other ones. This is one of my own brand bows. It's a Fleuriel bow, and it's actually carbon fiber, but it looks like timber, so it's got a nice timber veneer. And I have some people, I designed it, and I have some people making them for me, which is really nice. Here you go, Coralie. Another. Let me have a look. What's a good budget ratio for bow and instrument? Half. Look, budget ratio, it really depends. So my stepmom actually plays cello in the Queensland Symphony Orchestra, and she plays on a $40,000 cello, but she plays with a $90,000 bow, like a Dodd bow. So there the bow's actually worth almost twice as much than her cello. But then you get other ratios where it's so different. So it's really hard to tell. What's important is that you have a bow that works well for you. Hey, Carly, can you pass me my new violin for a sec? Yep. Sorry, I'm finding it difficult keeping track of all the questions, but I will make a real effort to go back, look at all the questions and answer them. I'm just working on my new violin, and I'm really excited because I actually I closed it just the other day. So it's going to sound really amazing. It's got such a beautiful back. Have a look at this. You can see I'm working on the scroll at the moment as well, so I'm just carving that. Yeah, just grab this. Think you've got, you got some other questions?
Someone asked about what happens if the sound post is in the wrong position.
Okay, sound post. When the sound post is in the wrong position, now I've done a video on sound post, so watch that as well. But when the sound post is in the wrong position, the instrument really has to work in harmony, and the exact position of the sound post makes sure that the instrument vibrates really freely. The moment you put the sound post in the wrong position, the instrument can't vibrate and sound that free anymore. So that's how I adjust an instrument for a really free sound. This is, let me see. Ooh. This is a VSO, a violin-shaped object that I cut open so you guys can see what it looks like inside. So the sound post sits it has to sit back from the bridge slightly this way from the bridge. And by the way, don't try that at home. Don't cut open your violin. So let me have a look. A good budget of $1,000. So this is where the sound post is supposed to be. It's supposed to be slightly back that way and slightly in. Oops, sorry, I've just disappeared. Someone asked me again about how to buy a good budget 1K violin. Look, for $1,000 violins, I would mostly look. I used to buy a lot of German and European instruments, but I think these days you get your best value with some of the Chinese makers. But just make sure that it's worth just getting a violin maker, choosing those instruments. I've seen some really dreadful instruments come out of China that are $1,000, but I've also seen some really wonderful instruments. One of my instruments, the Garibaldi instrument, that's around 1,000 Australian dollars, 1,100. So that's probably going to be about 800 US dollars. And that just has such an amazing and clear tone. But then I've come across $1,000 instruments that just sound really dull and make it really hard to play. You got another question? I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. So I have something called a bulletproof coffee. That's actually my breakfast, but it's I've been doing that for 3 years. It is so good.
Someone asked about wolf tones.
Oh, wolf tones. Okay. Haha, okay. And violin dents, can you ask me in a minute? So wolf notes are interesting because when you have an instrument, the body of the instrument actually makes a sound. I'll show you. I'll use this instrument. So the way you can find out what sound the body, so the whole air column inside the instrument makes, is you blow into the F hole like this. I don't know if you can hear that. I don't know how good my mic setup is, but it's. So on this one, it's. I'll try and work out the note. I don't have perfect pitch. Eddie, where are you? So A, B. So that's a B, I think, this one. On this instrument. So a wolf note occurs when the note that you're playing and the note of the body are very similar. And when they're very similar, what happens? So can you imagine like these waves, these sine waves that are created when you make a sound? And so you've got the sine wave of the sound you're playing and the sine wave of the sound that the body is making, and where they intersect, or when they get close together, they start making these woo, 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 woo sort of noises. And that's how wolf note happens. Someone actually asked, oh yes, quick question. Did I start playing violin before I started making violins? Definitely. I was 8 years old when I was started, and then when I was 16, I don't know. I kind of feel I had struggled with a lot of teachers. I didn't have I ended up finally finding a good teacher here in Australia. I had a brilliant teacher in Germany who he was a second generation Leopold Auer student, which was just amazing. And then I came to Australia, had a number of teachers, and also I didn't practice enough. So I stopped playing when I was 16, but then started again when I became a violin maker. Um, I definitely don't have perfect pitch. I have relative pitch, but I think Eddie has perfect pitch. And that can be a blessing and a real curse. Dints. How do I repair dints in instruments? It's actually quite tricky when you dint an instrument because the only way to get it out is by kind of uh, you basically would have to, like, I have to kind of soak it with water, and it's quite a tricky process to get a dint out of an instrument. A lot of times I leave dints in instruments and just say, well, that's just part of the story of the instrument. What would I have been if I didn't become a luthier? I was looking into maybe studying engineering or architecture. So I love beautiful architecture. I love beautiful buildings. And I get so disappointed with some of the really square buildings that people are putting up everywhere with like no thought about how it's going to look or fit into the landscape. So yeah, I would have probably been something like an architect or engineer.
A lot of people are asking about how you violin making and is there schools and things like that.
Oh, how do you? Okay. So there's someone who was 15 who made their own violin. Well done. That's really amazing. How can you fix a wolf tone? For cellos, oh, if a violin has a wolf note, that's really unusual. And I would take it to a violin maker. That can probably be fixed, but sometimes the plates are a bit too thin. So people asked how you become a violin maker. Look, I was really lucky because I actually, with my dad being a violin maker, I just grew into it and I got an apprenticeship. So you can either do an apprenticeship with another violin maker, or the way most people go now is they go to a violin making school, because a great thing about violin making schools is, especially if you go to a good one, you're going to learn everything correctly. You're going to learn all the right measurements, the right way to build an instrument. Like, it's 3 years of study. I think it's fairly expensive, so you do have to save up a bit. So some of the good schools are, the really good school is the one in England, in Newark in England. There's a really good one in Germany in Mittenwald. There's one in Cremona in Italy. There's another one in another really good school in Salt Lake City in America. So it's closer to some of the American people. But generally, there's a bunch of other schools. So just do your research, but and then also find out some of the reviews and things like that. But it's a really good way to you learn properly, and then you go into a violin shop, practice for a few years, and then if you want to set up your own shop or just work for people, yeah.
Someone asked if you speak any other languages.
Yeah, I speak German. Also ich spreche fließend Deutsch. That means I speak German fluently. I speak some very broken French and a tiny bit of Italian, just to, order my coffee. In French, I can actually book hotels and restaurants and order things, but I'd never got far enough to kind of describe my feelings, which kind of makes me sad because I'm gonna have to. I'm actually gonna learn further in French.
Someone asked about the piece you play at the end of your video.
Oh, the piece I play, that's Bach. I'm pretty sure it's Bach with Jescha Heifetz.
And how long it takes to make it.
No way. Your baby peed on your violin 20 minutes ago?
I think it's a joke. They've said it many times.
Oh, okay. It's a joke. All right. That is a crisis. I'll tell you about a different crisis, though. So, a bunch of years ago, but don't let your baby pee on your violin. Seriously. Where did you put your case? But yeah, we think it's a joke, so I'm gonna go with that. But dry your violin if it did, and I guess it's not going to be as much fun playing anymore for a while. Here, do you want to borrow my violin? No, it's fine.
Issues with Corona.
Yeah, that's right. But so a disaster that happened many years ago was one of my clients up in North Queensland. So what happens here in Queensland, we will get these thunderstorms that are you serious? It's not a joke. Your baby actually
I'll move on.
Sorry, I can't move on. I'm trying. Coralie's telling me to move on, but I can't do it.
He's got your attention now. So
Exactly, just dry the pee off. No, but so what happened is, so it's a similar situation, but much worse. We get these incredible thunderstorms, and so up in North Queensland, there was this one thunderstorm. It was actually like a low pressure system, and it literally just stopped over the top of this town. And in 2 hours, they had like 600 millimeters of rain. We're talking 2 feet of rain in a space of 2 hours. And the entire town just flooded. There was probably about a meter of water everywhere. And because it just couldn't flow away. And in Queensland, the houses that we have, they kind of stand on stumps. And so this teacher had a house on stumps. And then her studio was just used to be an old garage, but they put nice doors on it and fixed it up. And so she was one of those creative people that like to sleep in a little bit. Like she was up late and then got up quite late in the morning. And so when she got up in the morning, she was kind of walking down a bit sleepily and found herself in about 50 centimeters of water in her garden, and she got a shock and she ran to her studio, opened it up, and there was 50 centimeters of water in her studio, and her violin literally and case came floating out the door. Can you believe that? Like your precious violin. And she rang me immediately. I don't know how she got phone coverage, but she managed to ring me. And I said, look, dry your violin. And she had like a fan and she was running a fan on it. And she dried her violin and everything just came apart. And she sent it to me. Can you show me the letter? Grab me the letter. She sent it to me and I had to dry it, reassemble it, make sure that it wasn't warped or anything. And then in the end, I put it back together. Can you manage or is it too hard?
You mean this?
Yeah. uh, yeah, in the end, I managed to put the violin back together, and then here's the letter that you wrote. Here's the letter that you wrote. Please and fine enclose the check for the work on my violin. And here, the next sentence. I'm not sure exactly what else you did, but it's got a louder, clearer voice than it's ever had before, especially on the lower strings. Thanks so much for your care and kindness, particularly on that dreadful day just after I discovered the damage. I was upset, and you said you'd make it better than ever. I thought you were just making me feel better, but you've really done it. How cool is that? I mean, that was one of my, that's the kind of thing that I really love about my job, actually helping people, helping making playing easier for players. And that's why I actually do a lot of the videos that I do. I'm really trying to help and educate because there's so much misinformation out there.
Favorite composer as well?
My favorite composer. Hey, listen, that's a really hard one. I have got such a huge, like, I've got such a wide taste of music. You'll see I've done a video on you can use the violin on how many different styles of music you can use the violin on. That's kind of me, because I love, I grew up with Baroque and classical music and some folk music. I never really got into the umpapa folk music, but I love like gypsy music. I love some Spanish music, some tarantellas. I also really love some of the Brazilian folk music. I love some African folk music, but then I also like jazz. I like hip hop. I like what's it called? Electro swing. So I've got this really weird, wide, eclectic mix of music. So favorite composers, it's hard to say. So when I was little, my favorite composer was Mozart because he was so inspiring, because he was a composer when he was little. But then, now I love Bach, Tchaikovsky, Fauré, Eric Satie, who's absolute genius. But there are so many. I like Pair of Stella, which is Ludovico Einaudi is amazing. Elena Katz-Chernin, an Australian composer, just unbelievable. Yeah. So I actually improvise to electro swing sometimes. So it's a lot of fun. Okay, what would
Asked about what the most important part about building an instrument, what to get right.
Okay, someone asked what's the most important part to get right when you're building an instrument. So a very big thing is making sure that uh, that you finish each step before you move on to the next step. I can be actually slightly impatient, and I really have to make myself move, just finish absolutely everything until I move on to the next step. So that's very important. But as far as sound is concerned, I tap tune the plates, so I actually listen to the sound that the plates make, and in the end, the instrument is an instrument that someone plays, so it has to have an amazing sound, and so do everything you can to educate yourself about sound because there's not a lot out there. The schools don't teach you how to make a good sounding instrument. They teach you how to make a really beautiful violin-shaped box. But what you really have to learn is how to do it. Yeah, how to make it sound amazing. Hang on, I'm just going to say bye to my daughter. One sec. See you, Maria. Love you. See you this afternoon. We'll talk. Sorry, my daughter's on and I had to say bye. Very important. There's actually not a madame behind the camera. It's sitting on a stand answering some of the questions to me because the questions are coming through so fast. As I'm talking, I can't see them all. Yeah. And Peter says bye. I'm sure she didn't hear, but anyway. I'll send her a text later and let her know.
Someone asked about how to make pegs easier to turn.
How to make pegs easier to turn. Listen, I actually made a whole video about that. But there's just 3 things. The peg has to fit well. Use peg paste. I use the Hill peg paste, but I don't really care what brand you use as long as it works well. And then finally, make sure you wind the strings on right. But I've done a whole video about it, which is great.
And just someone asked about the climate here in Australia, how it affects.
Yeah, so someone asked how the climate here in Australia affects instruments. So in Queensland, we have both. We have extreme dry and extreme humidity. So when we have torrential rain, which we get sometimes, we'll be up at like 98% humidity, and it's actually really dangerous for instruments. But sometimes after a rainy period, it'll suddenly get really dry, and then it becomes dangerous again because if it's suddenly like we'll get these westerly winds right out of the middle of Australia from the desert, and it gets totally dry. And when instruments dry really suddenly, that's terrible for instrument. So it's just something you have to manage, you know, like when it's really humid, you try and keep the instrument dry as possible. When it's dry, instruments don't mind the dry. Probably old instruments dislike the dry a lot more because if they've had old crack repairs, they can open up. And I know that a lot of old instruments sound better when they're slightly humid if they've had a lot of repairs. So yeah. So yeah, that the climate here is quite challenging, and then you have to watch the heat because it gets, you know, like 30 to 35 degrees centigrade. I'm really sorry, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, and I'm not going to look it up right now. Yeah. So yeah, you just got to be careful with your instrument. I think I've done a video on how to look after your instrument. If I didn't, I will do it soon. Okay, I've got time for probably about 2 more questions, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about my day, and then I will move on. Yeah, then we'll finish off. Okay, what have we got?
Someone asked when they removed the bridge off the instrument, there was a layer of varnish underneath that the bridge was stuck to.
Yeah.
And we don't know what to do.
So someone asked, they took the bridge off the violin. By the way, don't take the bridge off the violin if you can avoid it, because the soundpost can fall down. So, you know, if you're a violinist, unless you're really good at like maintenance, don't take the bridge off. You know, let a violin maker do that one. But if you have taken it off and there's varnish underneath, it's not a really big worry. You can put a bit of chalk underneath, that's fine. Quite often varnish gets stuck to the bridge. What is not so good is if the bridge actually gets stuck to the instrument, it actually kills the tone, so it makes the instrument sound quite dull. So the bridge has to be loose, as in like the bridge can't be stuck to the top plate. It has to just sit on the top plate for a good sound. So sometimes like someone will come in and the instrument's not sounding good, and all I do is I unstick the bridge and the instrument sounds good again. Okay, a couple more questions. What have we got?
How do you know when you need to get a bow rehair?
How do you know when you need a bow rehair? Actually, watch my video on bow rehairs. Don't watch the one with Eddie and Brett. They're still practicing on their bow rehair skill. Now you can watch that one. It's a lot of fun. That's a 2-set video we did a while ago. But I actually did a video on me doing a bow rehair, and I explained quite clearly how to see if your bow does need a rehair. But usually it's when the hair goes shiny. That's a big sign. Okay. I love Melos light rosin. I'm a huge fan of Melos rosin. I really like it. I think they've done a wonderful job. One more question? Yeah.
Someone asked, I'm just trying to find it about a bridge being a diagonal line instead of a straight line.
Ooh.
They've asked a few times, I just can't find it again.
Yeah, okay. So the bridge, where the bridge has to sit on the instrument, so here you can see some very deep dents where the bridge is. But usually, if a violin maker has done it right, the bridge should sit exactly in the middle of these two nicks in the F holes. So there's like these little nicks in the F holes here and here. And that line should go right through the middle of the bridge. And then the bridge should line up straight with the fingerboard or sit in the middle of the instrument. But it has to do with something called the Mensa, which is the relationship between the top and the side. Come here. I'm just quickly saying bye to my son now. See ya. Have a great day. Hang on. See you, buddy. Okay, that's done. There's no more children to say bye to. It's all good. I only have two. So, but I do say hello to a lot of the neighbors that walk past here. So that can happen. So there's a thing called the Mensa, which is the relationship between from the nut to the edge of the violin and from the edge of the violin to the bridge. So that's on a violin that is 2 to 3. And so the bridge has to sit in that line, and so not everyone does. Not everyone puts those nicks in the right spot. But anyway, that's where the bridge sits. Anyway, I have to move on with my workday, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the jobs I have to do today. Okay. So the first one is I have to get this violin finished fairly soon. So I'm going to retouch this little crack area here. Then I have to give the whole instrument a polish. It's such a beautiful piece of wood. So I'm fairly certain it's a French instrument from the 1850s, but it's a very nice Guarnerius copy. So I'm going to polish that up today. Do the retouching and do some polishing. The great thing about the Australian climate is that everything dries so quickly because it's nice and warm. I've also been working on this beautiful violin here. So this is going to be done now. I hope she's not watching, but I'm finishing it for a 90th birthday present. So this has been this lady's violin for a while, and the daughter is actually getting it restored for her 90th birthday. That's an old German violin, also from around the 1850s. Actually, it might be a bit older, earlier 1800s. And it's had a whole lot of cracks, which I'm repairing. So I want to get that finished for next week. Then I have here we go. Then I have a new violin that I've been working on. So this is a Danish violin maker, and the varnish he used works well for Europe, but in Australia it actually got really sticky, and so I've been working on the varnish to put a layer on that's not so sticky. Okay. This is another viola that I'm just doing a polish on, so that's just a normal service that I'm doing. And then I've got one other violin. I'll just grab it. Okay, and this is I'm trying to remember what it actually is. Good one. Fairly sure. Yeah, okay. So it's an English violin, but it's not actually an English violin. So the company would have had German and French makers make instruments for them. So this is just kind of, it's like an instrument that's gotten, like a lot of people have instruments like these. So built around early 1900s. They're either old German or French instruments. This one's German, I'm very certain, and they've just gotten into a state of disrepair. So I'm repairing it at the moment. So what I'm doing is I'm planing the fingerboard. I've got to give the whole instrument a clean and polish. I'm going to do a new bridge, strings, tailpiece, sound post, and then I'm going to I've got to refit the pegs. And it's kind of that kind of thing, like it's an instrument that just hasn't been played for 50 years, but everything's kind of working well. So that's that I'm gonna get that finished. And then the last thing I have to do is I have to do a bow rehair as well. And hopefully I'll get a tiny bit of time to work on my scroll, because I want to really put the whole of my instrument together so I can varnish it soon. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, guys. It's been really fun. Sorry that I might not have gotten to everyone's questions. We'll try and read through the stream of questions afterwards, and I'll try and answer any questions if I haven't answered them in other videos. But watch my other videos. I've got loads of videos on various things, from instrument care, how to buy an instrument, and that kind of stuff. So thank you so much for watching, and hope you have a good afternoon, evening, night, middle of the night, early morning. Okay, guys, I'll see you soon. And oh yeah, make sure you subscribe. That way you always find out when I do these live streams and things like that, and like the video if you like it. No dislikes, please. No, but it's fine. If you dislike it, I'd like to know as well. Okay, guys, now I don't know how to finish this live, so it's where do I stop? I can't actually find a stop button, so oh, here it is. So yeah, you might have to stay here for the rest of the day. Okay, bye guys.